Shot of Hope live.
I don't appreciate drug addicts in my town.
Pouring recovery and hope directly into your ears, one episode at a time. With your recovering radio outlaws, Mickey the Kid.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happened.
And the sober gangster.
We don't use the word insane. We prefer the term mentally hilarious.
It's Shot of Hope live.
Me.
What I'm saying, it is Shot of Hope live. I'm your host, Mickey the Kid, my co-host. So thank God he is back with me tonight. The sober gangster. What's good, brother? How are you?
It was a lonely week last week. I was not a fan of being on the road. I was in Las Vegas and stuck in a conference, and man, I missed it. It was a great episode last week. I'm so glad to be back.
Well, and it's just, trust me, man. I'm glad to have you back. And of course, tonight we have a woman of the female persuasion here to share her amazing story with us. You're going to be our first female guest. Episode 4. Rachel has an amazing Facebook page that is got 39,000 strong. It is Addict with Purpose. And Rachel is going to share her amazing story, journey, and message of hope with us. Rachel, how the hell are you, and where are you joining us from tonight?
I am so good and excited to be here. Thank you. I am coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. Well, kind of Nashville. I live in the suburb, but I'm in the burbs.
We are absolutely glad to have you here tonight, and I can't wait to hear this because I mean, let me tell you a little bit about her since you don't know much yet, Mr. Gangster. So I was just perusing the internet through the old Facebook, deal, and I was researching like recovery rooms or something like that, and Addict with Purpose came up, and then I started. Now every day I see her in my feed with these amazing, morning. Good morning, everybody. It's sunshine, and and look at the unicorn. It just ran past my car as I'm on my way into work. And I mean, she's just got this amazing personality that you are drawn to immediately. And man, I'm just glad to have her here tonight.
I'm doing a little live Insta of our live with Rachel because I want everybody to hop on right now. So
absolutely,
I just went live on my Insta and I just did a little shot because I'm excited for people to hear Rachel's story.
Absolutely. So get us started, Rachel. When did it all begin with you? Like, when did you know? Could you tell when you were a kid that you had addict tendencies, or how did your journey begin, or how did your story begin?
Well, I was like a total. Can I curse?
Yeah, fuck.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I was like a little shithead. Okay, my poor dad. I grew up in a family where, gratefully today, a lot of people are in recovery. But I grew up in a super dysfunctional home, and I went to rehab for the very first time at 15 years old.
Wow.
And I spent my whole entire high school in and out of rehab. At that point, I didn't have a problem. My parents just sucked because they didn't want me to go out and party. And why shouldn't I, at 16 years old, be hanging out with people who were in Job Corps and out here tonight with strangers and getting drunk and high all night long? Like, why would that not be okay? So my journey into addiction and alcoholism started at a young age. I started using at 14. And I continued to use until I'm 43.
Yeah.
So I continued to use until I think I was 37. So for a really long time, and I had bits and sprouts of getting into recovery. And the more I get into my story, I'll kind of share about that. But I've been an addict my whole life and a little shithead. Now I'm a positive shithead.
I can relate to that. That was my story. I'm right there with you. I was a shithead from 14 till I got sober and spent most of my teen years in and out of treatment facilities or in a cage, one or the other.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what was the behavior though? I mean, obviously then getting drunk with people. And I mean, 16 years old, I can kind of write that same story. Was there, were the cops called? I mean, were you taken to juvie? I mean, did you have to go through that really hard, rigorous, teenage, that riotous, rebellious teenage syndrome, that we all go through as addicts, or was it a little bit more high bottom?
Yeah. I mean, the cops were involved. My story's it's that typical story of a kid who moved around a lot. I grew up in New York. We moved to Utah when I was 13, and we were different, right? So we came in the end of the 80s, early 90s as these total Queens, New York kids, and my accent was ridiculous, like Fran Drescher off of that TV show. I'm like, where's my water, my quarter, my father over there? And so everybody, like, we were different. We came with like these bright neon clothes, and we went to Utah. So everything about us was all wrong. And so I just wanted to fit in, and I wanted to have friends. And everywhere I went, everybody laughed at me. If we went to church, they're like, we want Rachel to talk. And they all laughed. Now as an adult, I know they just thought I talked really cool. But as a kid in this new neighborhood where everybody's just laughing at you, nobody likes that. I mean, they were awful. And all teenage kids are awful. And so I went and I found they're awful, right? Like little jerks were pulling my hair on the bus and telling me, fuck you. Awful. I was just crying all the time. Yeah. And so I found a group of misfits who were also from other areas. Like I remember one of my best friends was from here in Tennessee. He was from Memphis. Another one was from the Bronx. And my story and journey started hanging out with these people as they were learning what gangbanging was and how to be a gangster. And I mean, these kids I hung out with were literally picking what set they wanted to be with. And that's what I molded to. So, wow. Yeah, it was crazy. I can't
picture that in Utah for some reason, because I just think of all the Mormons and, I can't picture that, but I guess it exists.
Well, and those Utah Mormons didn't want to know me. And so I had to find somebody who would accept me. And I have a twin. And so we found the other misfits and people who didn't have friends. And it wasn't a large group of people. I mean, Utah was such a culture shock to me also. I mean, I came from the melting pot of the country to one Indian, one Chinese, and maybe a half black kid in my school, And so finding the kids that related to me as I got into junior high and we were into high school, it was bad. I mean, we were stealing cars and calling them in stolen, or like doing stupid shit, and the cops would come over and be like, that car you reported stolen is in your garage. And I was like, oh, so you guys are going to check the house because somebody robbed a Burger King. And so we were hiding the car and like stupid, dumbass shit. But I never, go ahead.
What made you guys move to Utah from New York? What was the transition?
My dad, my sister, my oldest sister, I have two older sisters, and she was hanging out with the neighborhood junkie, and my dad wanted to protect her and was like, we're running away from our problems. And so my dad had come to Utah to get sober many, many years ago. And that's where he met my mom and moved back to New York. And so he was like, well, let's go to Utah. That's where I got sober and did really well.
Let's go back to Utah. It's where we get, Virginia's for lovers, but for fucking Utah's for addicts.
Utah's all about addicts. They have this little saying out there, and they're like, come on vacation, leave on probation. Totally what happens. Like Florida. Yeah. That's Florida. And so Utah was not healthy for me. I was a teenage runaway. I was hanging out with, I look at the people I was hanging out with back then, and I'm like, I am so lucky I wasn't trafficked. I am so lucky that I wasn't that alive. And there was really things like, a big part of my story is I wanted to go to this party, and my dad said, no, you can't go get drunk. And he knew there was going to be guys there. And he was really being a good father, protecting me from the world. But I'm like, you are not getting in my way. They went out to dinner and I ran away. And my first night as a 15-year-old out on the streets, I was with a bunch of guys and I got really drunk. And then what happens to 15-year-olds who get drunk with a bunch of dudes happened. And I was taken advantage of and by a lot of men. And I couldn't go home after that. And it was like, how do you go home? Okay, I made a really big mistake, but how do I go home and tell my mom all these men just like had their way with me? And so I just continued to party. And
that's rough.
I was miserable. It was awful. It was awful, you know, because I thought I was just going out to have fun. And as an adult, I realized my dad was saving me, trying to, from this exact moment. And I'll never forget it. Like, I'm puking in a swimming pool because I'm drunk, and these fuckers are like, let's take advantage of her. Who does that?
Yeah.
Sick people. Sick motherfuckers.
I just sat at our dinner table last night with my 2 teenage daughters that are 16 and 17 and had a really serious talk about that's the reality of the dangers that women can face, that I don't understand it. Like, I didn't face that thing those things, it wasn't a risk for me in those environments. And now that I'm a father of teenage girls, and I know how teenage boys can be when they get drunk and when they get stupid and get in a crowd, it's a real fear. And having these hard conversations around the table are really important to know what can happen to young women out there living the lifestyle that, I mean, you don't have to be living the lifestyle that we're living.
Oh,
it can
actually,
happen to young women everywhere all the time. Yeah, it can, and it's just as a male who's strong and, you know, heterosexual, like all the things that happen to other people, I don't really get to experience. And so I have to put myself in, you know, other people's shoes and what is out there for them. And, you know, what you went through is a conversation I just had with my daughters last night, because they're going to a party for Halloween that's at a pool where they're dressed up in Halloween clothes. And I mean, what you just said just sent chills down my body, because it's like, it's a real thing and it's scary. And
let me tell you
that you went through it.
Having been man, I've seen this story happen you know, at high school parties. I have you know, I've known about things that have happened to, you know, the loose girl, you know, that was at the party, just wanted to be with one of the guys. And man, it is the most awful. I mean, I left a party one time because I was like, I can't be around these motherfuckers. These are not my people. These are not my guys. And I just remember these. I saw these guys that did something to a girl on a pool table. She was absolutely passed out, fucking drunk, and I just left horrified. You know, it was just like, holy fuck, I can't be a part of this. And I'm like, let's go to the next high school party, and we wound up going to another party, and just because I didn't want to be around. There were a bunch of jocks, bunch of fucking dickheads, and you know, and I don't know how that girl is today, but I do know that is a very, very real, tragic, life-changing mind fuck that no woman should ever have to experience. And that's why I have a lot of compassion and empathy for the woman that makes it to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous or makes it to Alcoholics Anonymous. And there are very few. It's not like the men, you know, because we're fucking strong. You know, we're strong until we're weak. And we know that if we get together with a bunch of cavemen, that we're going to make a fucking village together. And we know that we're going to survive. But trying to see there's not as many women in recovery. And there need to be more messages of hope. And hey, if you come here, here's what we can hopefully help you with. And you know, I've seen sick shit in recovery too, but you know, it's not as prevalent as it is in the real world, you know, with people drugging girls and, you know, all that stuff. It's a very dangerous situation, especially if you're female and fragile.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. And it happens. And I wish that was the only time in my story that something like that happened and it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, as a woman, eventually you just get used to it and you're like, and it's crazy. Like, there were so many nights I was somewhere and I would lock my door and I'm waking up with somebody's hands down my pants. And I'm like, my fucking door was shut, you fucking tool. Like, why am I waking up like this? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I appreciate you for having those conversations with your kids and being real, because in my home, we didn't talk about that stuff. It was just Papa, the powerhouse dad, who we think is this mean, evil bully, is just protecting us because he doesn't want us to know what's out there. And so my poor kids know all about what's out there.
let me be fair. My wife is the instigator of these conversations while I'm at the table, and I'm this chair there because it's hard for me to have those conversations.
Can't imagine.
And luckily, she's there to have these real conversations because I mean, I don't know of a woman that has not experienced some form of abuse somewhere at some point in their life, whether it's been very, heavy abuse or small abuse.
Abuse is abuse.
It's kind of like if you were going to ride a motorcycle, you just have to plan on wrecking that motorcycle one day.
Mm-hmm.
It's as a woman, at some point, you're going to have to deal with facing abuse or trauma in some form, whether it's verbal or physical or whatever. And I didn't know that. I didn't know how bad it was until
mental too. Mental's a big one, man. Fucking, you can get with that narcissistic guy that fucking gaslights you and fucks with your head. And
done that too.
I know it's out there. I know it's out there. I know people that are going through divorce and going through that shit right now. And it's raw. It's raw. And but thank you for your courage of sharing that with us and the audience tonight. Because it takes an incredible amount of courage to share that story. And I just commend you for your bravery for sharing that with us tonight. I really do.
Thank you. Yeah, it's awful, but we have these conversations so that hopefully and that's not saying those things happen is not going to stop a teenager or an adult from going to a party tonight, but maybe they'll be happy. Wrong word. Maybe they'll feel safe to bring it to somebody else.
Sure.
And that's why we recover out loud, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's a lot like what you just said, recovering out loud. I might not say something tonight that gets somebody sober, but at least you might put a bug in their ear. That's all I can hope for with my girls. Like, at least if they see the warning signs coming, they at least have heard it and they can escape before it gets too bad, or they can be like, oh God, we just talked about this at the dinner table. This is literally happening before my eye. I need to get out of here. I need to grab my sister and I need to go.
See something.
All I can hope is we're something that gets said, whether it's where we're all sitting here carrying a message of recovery, somebody hears something that one day they'll be like, I remember what Rachel said on that podcast. Holy shit. I need help. Yeah,
it's real. Real as rain. That shit happens every day. And it's dreadful. So on the darker side, so that now that you've taken us to the darkest side of this addiction shit, I mean, like, I'm dumbfounded. Take us into how you found recovery. I mean, obviously the rehab at 15. Take me down the so we already know what happened. So what it was like to get to where you're going now.
So I had numerous rock bottoms, right? Like, I wish I could say I was one of those people who my first rock bottom was it, but I didn't even really get that it was a rock bottom. Like, I was homeless in New York City, backpack kid, living out, like, figuring things out, and it was everybody else's fault, right? It's always everybody else's fault. I'm homeless not because I'm using drugs. I'm homeless because you kicked me out. The reason why doesn't matter. My first experience of getting sober, I got really lucky, and in 2007, I birthed my first child. Wow. And I was married to, I just was married. I was married to somebody, and we weren't planning. We were married probably about a year and a half. We weren't planning on having kids. I was heavy into my addiction. And I ended up getting pregnant, and by God's grace, I thank you, Jesus, again. I knew when I got pregnant that I needed to clean up, and I got sober really for the very first time on my own for my kid. And I quit cold turkey. I was on a bunch of meth. I was on a bunch of coke. I mean, a bunch of alcohol, like New York City club girl gone. I'm going to withdraw. I think this is morning sickness, but I'm not really sure. And I had 2 kids back to back. My kids are 18 months old, 18 months apart, literally to the day. And I literally breastfed them until like the very last moment of being able to, because I knew once I wasn't pregnant and once I wasn't feeding them, then I had to like be sober on my own. And that didn't work because a lot of people, they say this, you know, if you don't work a program, you're eventually going to go back. Well, that just continued to run true through my life over and over again. So I got sober for probably like 3-4 years. I had a little cigarette here and there during like the young ages of my kids, and I drink a glass of wine, but not often. But as soon as the breastfeeding was done, alcohol is I love drugs, right? I love them. But I'm the alcoholic of the worst kind, because you give me a tiny little bit of alcohol and I go on to this crazy meth bender or coke bender until I'm incarcerated every time.
It's what I tell everybody. You know, I mean, we could say I know I'm a drug addict. All I do is, the only reason I start with alcohol is because it lowers the inhibitions, and then once the inhibitions are down, fuck it, let's make some bad decisions. Like now.
And I make really great bad decisions, because all I'm thinking is, I'm too drunk to drive. Better go get some coke. Better go get some meth so I could drive. And
where's the bad neighborhood? Where's the bad neighborhood in this city? Because that's where I need to go. You know, I'm going to drive down there at 3 a.m. and see who's standing on the corner.
Yeah, totally normal. I mean, times in my life, like, this is just funny in New York, like cops literally, I'm up in Washington Heights, I'm up in areas I have no business being. And the cops would tell me, they're like, if I see you out here one more time, I'm like, I got arrested one night for being in the wrong neighborhood. And I didn't understand it. Now I do, as a 40-year-old, when the cop was like, I'm taking you in because I'm saving your life. I was like, if this motherfucker, I need to get high, bro. Right. And he probably was saving my life. And I probably, you know, my life was more than likely saved. But so I went back into this crazy bender, got started using again, probably like 2010. But what I did was, instead of going back to the drugs, I'm an ADD kid. I've always been an ADD kid. So I got this really great idea that, because I couldn't get rid of like the taste of the meth or the coke from the back of my nose, I could always smell it. I could taste it. I was fantasizing about it all the time. And I'm like, I have kids. I can't do that, but I can get some Adderall. And I went and got Adderall. And for like the first 2 months, I took it. Well, I knew how to manipulate to get it to where I was prescribed it 3 times a day. And, you know, like the highest dose 3 times a day. So I was lit. And then I would have this idea, let's take 2 at a time, and then 3 at a time, and now 4 at a time. And now in 2 weeks, my whole entire script's gone and I need to be high. So let's go back to being on meth. And my cycle just all the time, over and over, kept happening.
Wow.
They say in recovery and in the rooms, right, you have to change your people, places, and things. So I moved to New York. I moved out of New York back to Utah in hopes of running from my problems. And this will make you guys laugh just because it's just so fucking true. I went out to a bar one night, moved back to Utah. I swore I'd never go back there. I left it in 1997. I was like, this place sucks. I want to get the fuck out of here. End up going back to run from my problems. And I meet the exact same people that I got in trouble with in high school at a bar. And from that moment on, that was it. It was the end of my marriage. I was back on coke. I was back, you know, selling pills, and I was doing everything. Now I'm in the strip club. The strip clubs are more important than hanging out with my kids. And the whole entire ugly cycle just continued to keep on happening until this beautiful, awful moment, July 31st, I think, 2017, I went to go visit my kids. I completely abandoned them. You know, it's like the one thing I can always say is, you know, something's really awful and powerful and bad is when you leave your children over it, because there is not one person, a father or a mother, who intentionally will desert their children on purpose. Yep. And that's what drugs do. You abandon your children that day that little beautiful being is born and you are so in love, and you have a reason to live, but then you can't live without the substances that keep you away from them. So I had come to my mom's house. I'd been awful, just lots of awful, terrible stories. I'm kind of like at that part where I want to get sober, and I'm thinking I'm going to go to my mom's and visit my children. Hadn't seen them in months, and maybe I'm going to get sober, maybe I won't. That was the intention. Truth be told, if I didn't get arrested that day, I don't know if I would have got sober like I wanted to. I don't know. And I remember my mom's super LDS. So like she's always been, if you go to jail, don't call me. I went to jail all the time. She never answered. She never visited. She stood her ground. She's like, I don't do jail. You know, those kind of people, they're not my people. And if you do that, you're not my kid. And she held her own boundary because that was hard for her. Yeah. I went to her house. I passed out. She has a picture and I share it, you know, on my recovery birthday every year. I was passed out, withdrawing from years of use, and she took pictures of me. And I to this day, I don't know if she called the cops or not. It was either the warrant squad showed up. When I came to her house, I'm like, Mom, it's the weekend. The warrant squad may come. I have a bunch of warrants. If they come, don't answer the door. And she must have just thought I was nuts. But to me, that was like sane thinking. Don't answer the door, hide from the cops, you know. And I'll never forget it. I mean, my kids were sitting on top of me. They were 7 and 9 at that time, literally playing on detoxing passed out mom who didn't move for 3 days. Like I might have just moved just an inch. Yeah. The picture's awful. I'm skin and bone. My hair is like blonde, only at this part I'm ratchet. Like I just look like I'm strung out and ratchet.
Total. Yeah.
And I'll never, ever forget this. I know I keep saying that, but I hear the doorbell ring. And it's like day 3 of me like fully sleeping. And I hear my little girl, Carly, just go, Mommy, yeah, my mommy's here. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Right? And I'm like, Mommy's here. Who's there? And
Uncle
I
Policeman.
open my eyes and it's the popo. Yeah. And I'm just like, what do I do? Now I know I have a bunch of like paraphernalia on me. Now, of course, there was nothing on there because like, why would you throw out your tutors that you've already rinsed out? Why would you throw out your foils that you've already licked off? You know what I mean? You got to save them. You got to save everything because there might just be something at some point. So the cops are there and I'm like, I got to freaking figure out how to get rid of this evidence because they're going to find it when they bring me into jail. And I try to like
another charge.
Yeah, and I try to smoothly throw it away, and he catches me, and it wasn't more charges added to the list of just the warrants coming to pick me up.
There we go.
And like I'm like, you're charging me for paraphernalia on something that there's not even drugs in. I already drank it. Like, and I think for whatever reason it was, the cops were really cool. They didn't put me in handcuffs in front of my kids. That was the best part. But
pretty cool.
I was under this impression and understanding because I was sick that as long as my kids didn't see me sick, they didn't know what was happening. So if I'm not using drugs in front of them and not coming home for 5 fucking months, they don't know the harm that's happening. I mean, this is just sick thinking, right? I'm thinking I'm doing them a favor. Meanwhile, I'm just traumatizing them and destroying their lives regardless. And so the cops arrested me that day. I'm driving up. This part's funny. I have a total different thought process of what I'm telling the cop. And I'm like, bro, I'll do whatever you need me to do. I just got out of jail. I just did like 3 months. Please don't take me back. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And the cop looks back and he's like, ma'am, we don't do those kind of things. Yeah. We don't take those kind of offers. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just want to go to rehab, bro. I'm like, he's thinking I'm like trying to offer sexual favors.
For sure.
And I'm all for like, send me to rehab. I'll go. I wanted to get sober. And I just remember his face and me I hung out with strippers and that was my life and escorts and whatever. And I mean, I didn't go that route, but I did other things to make money and no judgment. Like I love my sex worker friends and I support, whatever. But when he said that, I was like, honey, that ain't my whole phone. It's my hustler phone. And I just thought that was crazy that he even thought that that's what I meant. But of course he did.
Of course, you're a drug addict. So what's he going to think? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now she's trying to proposition me not to take her to jail. Okay. Well, that might work in LA, but it ain't working in here, sister.
Right.
This is Utah. This is Utah.
This is Utah. It was like, he's like this blonde, like young rookie. And I'm just laughing like, no, bro, just rehab. Yeah. They didn't offer me rehab. They were trying to give me 6 months for a tail light ticket. I mean, it wasn't even a good charge. The charges I had in Utah County, which were probably going to send me to prison, they were like, we don't want to transport. Tail light ticket, dude. Tail light ticket.
Coming to the house for a tail light warrant.
Tail light ticket.
What is this?
I'm
They
telling
just
you.
wanted to get you off the street. Let's
That's
be
fucking
clear.
Mayberry, right?
Yeah, because I was such a
Danny
menace.
Griffith shit.
You were a menace, and they wanted you
A
off the
menace
street.
for my taillight ticket.
No doubt.
So, but that was God working in his mysterious way.
Sure it was.
They were, first of all, they were trying to tell me the judge was out of town was like on vacation. I couldn't even get a court date for like 3 months. And I'm like, this is bullshit. And nobody was going to pay $1,800, for that. I couldn't even get bailed out for $50. Now $1,800, this is trash. But it ended up working in my favor. This was the very first time, my mom knew at this moment that something was different, because I was like, she just knew getting arrested in front of the kids and bringing them in she always knew my heart for my kids was real. And she started answering the phone. She gave me $10 on my phone every week, which was more than I'd had in a long time. $10 so I could get my coffee and honey buns while I was in there.
That gangsta shit, that gangsta food right there.
I'm telling you,
get the bangs. Let's go.
It was awesome. Like, she let me talk to my kids. And for the first time I had hope that I was actually I tried to get out of jail and get sober. But again, if you don't go to work a program, or if you don't go to do something, nothing changes if nothing changes. You can't keep hanging. Can't go to a trap house and hang out with everybody shooting dope and expect yourself not to shoot dope in 3 days, because I always did something. And that was the beginning of my beautiful journey. I came home, my mom and dad at that point, it was just my mom, and she let me back into the house, and everybody told her she was stupid. This is wrong. Rachel is not going to get better. She's been homeless for too long. She's been in the dark for too long. There's no hope. And I thank her every day, almost every week still to this day, because I'm like, had you not let me home, I wouldn't have been able. I wasn't going to go to an AA clubhouse and raise my hand and say I need help. Like, I wasn't. Maybe I would have, but I probably would have already been in federal prison and just sitting in circles in the prison, because that's where I was headed. Like, I had some charges that, again, by the grace of God, I don't know why all of a sudden they stopped pursuing me, but they did. And life has been really wonderful since then. But a lot of tragedy in between.
You know what? We're all like patch quilts. Our life, each one has a patch for it. Every little moment in time that has made us into these beautiful mosaics of human beings who we are, because we come in to recover broken, just shattered. And I watch people every day, as Sober Gangster does, as you do, come in and they pick up the pieces little by little, and they start gluing them back together, and they they turn out to be these most beautiful, inspired humans that just want to carry the same message that you're carrying in the room. And they, the ones that have the desperation that, I know that's who I was when I got there, man. One felony, it only took one felony arrest for me. And I was like, man, that fucking mugshot is ugly. I can't look that ugly ever again. And I'm just like, we can't be doing this. And then sitting in a bullpen, trying to wait to calling every attorney in town to every bail bondsman. They got all the numbers that, like in Fort Myers jail, they have like 6 TV screens, and then they go alphabetically A through Z. And you're just trying to find one bail bondsman that's going to pick up at 7 a.m. and fucking come get you. And then, of course, they come at 8 o'clock. They post your bond, but they're not letting you out till noon, 2 o'clock. You're still sitting there eating a mystery meat sandwich, waiting for fucking everybody to, in your stupid orange jumpsuit, and just like I couldn't wait to get out of there, man. I got out of there, and I was like, fuck, and then I still went back home. I was still using, and it took my wife, who's an absolute angel of mercy, coming into my empty 4-bedroom house and going, "You look like fucking shit. You're gonna die." And I said, she's like, "Just please go to treatment." And I'm like, Who's gonna take care of this house? This empty fucking house. Who's gonna take care of this place? And she's like, "I'll have your friends just pack up all this shit and fucking move it into storage." And I'm like, Give me 2 credit cards then. And she gave me 2 credit cards. And I went to my drug dealer. I bought a bunch of dope, and I drove straight to Cleveland, Ohio, to this place called Primary Purpose. And that's where my journey. That desperation. I remember waking up the second day in treatment, just crying my fucking eyes out, like I was, like I had died. You know, like I'd already went to my funeral. I'm never going to see my kid grow up. Our kids grow up. I destroyed the one woman that, you know, was my ride or die for all those years. And she had met me in sobriety. So she had never seen the monster I became when I relapsed after 7 years. And she's like, who the fuck is this guy? You know, and then, you know, and here I am today. Thank God I'm blessed that I have this wonderful opportunity to, you know, have treatment and do all this stuff. And man, it's amazing. And my buddy Joel Anthony is trying to call, so he must be watching the show. So I have to link up the phone to, you know, from the sober sessions.
He was on last week, right?
He was on, yeah, he was the sober sessions. Joel Anthony, he was really great, and he's calling because normally the show is live. I just didn't hook up my cell phone to the thing, so I should probably connect my phone so we can take a phone call because that would be kind of cool too.
Right.
But finish your story. So anyway,
so yeah, I wanted to hear how's it with your mom now? So you got sober in July of 2017, is that right?
Yep, July 30th, 2017 is the last, I'm pretty sure that was the last day when I cleaned out my tutor the day before. So I count 30th as my day. And we're best friends. You know, I've been following my parents around the country. I've lived a lot of places. Like I moved to LA, wherever they go, I go. So I've done all these really great, amazing things in my recovery, but my dad and I are finally like at a place where it's been like the last 3 years, we're friends again. We laugh, like we have holiday dinners and people want me around. I'm not screaming and blowing a fit and making a scene so I can have an excuse to go and leave. My family relationship between all my sisters, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, like we're good. We're good. And they're, you know, my dad tells me he's proud of me. And that wasn't the story for a really long time. And
we were talking before the show, your dad's an OG, right?
Yeah, is an OG.
He's been in recovery for a long time, right?
He has. And I wish I could remember. I feel it's like I think last year might have been 35 years or maybe it was 33. I just can't remember right now. Wow. But he is the OG of OGs. And, you know, I've watched him go from like what we went through as children to big, beautiful mansions and boats and nice cars. And he did something for himself. Like he could have been that Queens kid that was on heroin and died. And he changed his life and he gave us a really good, you know, it was hard for a while, but as I grew up, like he really got his shit together in my adolescent teenage years. And he's done so many amazing things and they continue to let me back into their house and they continue to love me. And that's the beautiful part because I was not nice like anybody else when I was using. I thought I was, but I wasn't.
Yeah, they don't have to hide the purses and wallets, you know. That's right. It's always nice when you can go for what you call for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that stuff. Hold on a second. I think I got Joel here. Joel, are you there? Hold on one second. You there? Hold on. Let me connect you. Hold on a second. I think we got him.
What is he up to?
Can you hear us, Joel?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead and talk a little louder.
All right, man. I got my earpiece in, so I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yeah, you're live. You're live with us, buddy. Go ahead and talk to Rachel. Say hi to Rachel.
Awesome. What's going on, Rachel? How you doing?
Hi,
Joel. Joel, I'm sorry I missed you last week.
Dude, it's all good. It's all good, dude. I missed you. You know, I wanted to chat with all you guys. So, but no, thank you, Rachel, so much for sharing your story. You know, I follow you on Facebook and everything. And, you know, everything you do for pretty much all of us, you know, we're all in this together. We're all trying to help everyone. So I definitely shout out to you and your story and just kind of giving hope to the hopeless, like I always say. To everybody. You know, it means a lot. You know, it means a lot.
Thank you.
You're a stud, Joel.
Yeah, you are a stud. And I love sober sessions.
Yeah, the sober sessions, definitely follow him on Facebook as well, man. He's got like 7K on his followers too. So he's rocking a nice little entourage himself.
Yeah. I'm like low-key jealous because you have the cute heart logo and I'm like all for hearts and I'm like, how did he think of that? That would have been so good for me.
She loves your logo.
You know, yeah, the logo. yeah, you know, the Purple Heart, it was just something I came up with, you know, because addiction really does. It hits home, it hits the heart, you know, and that's what it's all about. And then when you get sober, you know, it's all about having heart. You know, you have to have heart to survive this game, you know?
Yeah.
100%, Joe, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for calling. Dude, I love you to death. You know that, though. We chop it up.
Man, I know how it is. I love you guys too. I love everything you guys do. You know, I love that we're all in this together and that we're continuing to just spread hope, you know?
Amen.
Love, uplift others, motivate, inspire, baby. That's what we do.
Amen, man. Hopefully, Arlen Wise, he gave us a suggestion. Arlen Wise, you got to check this guy out. I posted his song on my Facebook page yesterday, the Shot of Hope page. It's called Dear Lord. Check out that song. I'm going to try and get him on as a guest coming up in November. But you know, hey, I'm going to get back to Rachel here, dude. Sober Sessions on Facebook. Love you, Joel. And man, we'll be talking soon.
See you, Joel.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I love you guys. Continue doing what you do.
Thanks, broski, man. Love you too.
This is so cool. We just took
Keep doing it.
All right. Take care, buddy.
We just took a caller on the show. What the hell is going on? This is so cool.
Yeah, it is. I love it, dude. You know, and dude, that's why I have my cell phone is linked to my board, so that, like, you know, so we can do this. You know, I have a Google Voice number, so when they call that, it rings my cell phone. But then I have a Bluetooth section on my board here in my YouTube studio, so I can pull calls up from my phone onto here, and we can talk with people. It just makes it another little dimension better, man. You know,
I just got really excited.
It
sorry.
does.
I didn't know we could do that.
Bro, we can do things, man. We have the capabilities, man.
So I want to hear about what Rachel's doing with her Recovering Out Loud and her community.
Absolutely.
I
want to hear the inspiration for the Facebook.
I want to hear how you got to that.
So I've always been a helper, right? Like a helper. And let me tell you, somebody so nice like I am and the helper, they eat people like me up in the freaking game. They chew me up and toss me to the freaking wolves. And that's just who I've always been by nature, is I've always wanted to help people. I remember when somebody told me once, they're like, "You're the reason I'm a drug addict." I'm like, all I was trying to do was get you high for cheaper. Why am I the bad guy? Like, how dare you say that? And so the instant I got sober, you know, every time it's always been every little bouts that I had until this last time that gives me the long term was I was always trying to connect people to resources. And like in 2014, I got this awful DUI and I got the amount of drugs I had was insane. And I tried to get sober at that part. I was like starting to help my friends find rehabs and like, let's get you on Obamacare or healthcare marketplace, and let's get you into a treatment program. And I started, I don't know if you guys are familiar with YPR, Young People in Recovery, but that was my first like round of like getting involved with advocacy work. And I really liked it. Relapsed for like 9 months, came back, got sober, and I started my first chapter. Like I started a YPR chapter, and that was life-changing for me. I don't know why it blew up, but it did. And we became this like really big popular thing in Salt Lake, doing these awesome events that had like hundreds of people come in. We're feeding the homeless once a month. We're going into treatment centers and doing different life skills workshops. And I got a taste of what real advocacy work was and how to help people. Then something happened and like haters came, and I ended up stepping down from that position. But I had gone into another, nonprofit and was into doing that, and don't date your partner, lesson learned. And that that didn't work out, and then I lost that position over there. And don't shit where you eat. I won't ever do it again. And then I learned, and then I started my own nonprofit in Utah, and we became this really cool syringe exchange program. And it was boots on the ground, out there in homeless camps, doing homeless advocacy, helping people. I mean, there was a point where I was getting 50 to 70 people into treatment, some like a week. And whether it was detox, sober living, getting them on like bridge program, which would get them onto MAC, getting them into treatments, like whatever it was like, all I was doing was using my story. And like, I became that big resource in this group that I had created, which was Mosaic. It was called BAM, Beyond Addiction Mosaic, because of that whole Mosaic term. and we did these really great things, and I loved it. And when I moved last year, I was 5 years into my recovery. I was feeling complacent. I had to get a job because nonprofit, I didn't want my nonprofit to be something that was to make money. So it was all volunteer, like really, truly giving back, not making money. So I had to work a full-time job too. In fact, I was working 3 jobs. And I had lost one of the jobs I had, which became my identity, which was transitional housing for the homeless. And there was a budget cut and a bunch of drama. And it was like, if I ever had enough money saved up, I was going to leave at this certain amount. And I got it. So it was like, okay, we're leaving. I moved back to New York last year. And I started Addicts with Perfect. Addicts with was going to be my transition of letting the nonprofit I created go, which has been really hard because I didn't realize like I really depended on there was some ego behind that, being the person everybody knew and popular, to coming to somewhere where nobody knows you. I thought I was gonna love it. Really thought I was gonna love being in a quiet place, but I do miss some of those things. But I created the Addicts with Purpose page because I wanted to journey. It was like a whole God thing. It was like 5 years, I'm complacent. What am I going to do? I need a new spiritual awakening. I'm going to go.
5-year itch. They talk about it. It's actually a real fucking thing, man.
Yeah.
That's
And
5 year.
I knew I was in trouble. And so only in trouble because at that point it was like everything was a memory. Every corner I went to was a corner I used at, or some kind of trauma happened, or this bad memory. And I thought after 5 years I would have replaced all those bad memories, but I wasn't. And I never really liked Utah anyway. So we moved back to New York. I created the page to just follow my journey and what this spiritual awakening was, and what leaving somewhere that became your home for 7 years or 8 years and going on an act of faith that God was going to put me where I needed to be and
100.
give me the job. And then I ended up in Tennessee. So, I mean, and that's how the page started. It was like, here's who I am, and I'm going with nothing, bringing almost none of my stuff. And I did move with my parents, but we went back to New York, and the kids were ready for school, and we were going to get everything done. And then they came to Tennessee and bought a house one weekend. And I'm like,
let's check Tennessee out.
Yeah, I'll go. And I landed a job right away. Like, it was such a freak. I mean, we were literally traveling in an RV with 2 1-year-old Rottweilers, 2 teenagers, me, my mom, and my dad. And we lived like that for like 5 months. And we never fought. That's how good my recovery is. Not one of us ever had a fight. And we lived together well. But now I'm just here, and I'm just posting who I am and trying to be vulnerable. And the page is, it's just my passion is to help people. And my purpose has been to use my story and be vulnerable and be what I think I could have used maybe years ago to not have suffered for this long.
Well, there's no coincidence in God's world. It's we all think it's a freak accident, and wow, how unique that this happened. Everything lines up, but it's that step 3, that turning the will of my life over to the care of God, as I understand, trusting the process, and about what's supposed to happen. If I'm supposed to be here, I'm supposed to be here, and it's the greatest risks are the ones that we never take, because you'll never know what the reward's going to be. And sometimes the risk is well worth the reward. 99.9% of the time, anytime I've ever taken a risk, it's always been well worth the reward at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you talked about, your 5-year journey and the tracking the spiritual awakening of what you're going through. And, from my experience, and I bet you your dad with long-term recovery will say the same, it's taken multiple spiritual experiences throughout my recovery. I've had multiple bottoms throughout my recovery in recovery, like those bottoms that you get in recovery, those bottoms that, your purpose goes away, your ego gets hit, your relationship ends, the money goes away, the money comes, the painful loss of lives of friends, like all the things that happen to us once we get sober. I've had multiple spiritual experiences, and I've had multiple bottoms while in recovery, because that hole comes back, that hole of that void in my life, that disconnect from my higher power, whatever it is. And, having that long-term recovery journey requires multiple spiritual experiences, multiple psychic changes, whatever you call them. For me, I know I've had to continue to grow throughout my recovery journey. And at 5 years, at 8 years, at 12 years, whatever, even at 27 years, I'm still going through a journey where I'm still having an experience, and I'm still trying to find, my purpose in recovery, because it changes as I've gone along. So, the fact that you're speaking to that and then documenting it is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I didn't know where it was going to go. Like, it's just, you never know where your pages are going to go. And it seems to be working. I'm helping people, like, I'm just being me, and I love it, because I'm like, I can be quirky me. I can be honest me. I can be angry me. I can be silly me. And it works. And like, I love how you said you go through these waves, because I've gone through traumatic job loss. I've gone through heartbreak of a lifetime. I've gone through the death of my best friend. I've gone through moving literally 2 different countries to 2 different places and completely starting over. And I'm still sober. I've gotten through them. Have they been hard? Yes, they've been super hard. But I just keep going back to the basics. Like, my brain says, you had to do whatever it took to get sober. Now you got to do whatever it takes to remain sober.
Keep it.
And I just keep doing the same thing, in a good way, and reaching out and talking to other addicts and being honest and being vulnerable. And, like, at my job, where we've got a bunch of peer supports, but their recovery looks different than mine. Like, I work an abstinence-based program because it has been proven, my track record and my jail record show that I can't drink.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do drink. And so I've had to, I've tried to go hang out with them, and I'm like, y'all, this just isn't for me. I love alcohol too much, and work is way too stressful for me to be sitting and hanging out with you guys, because I wish I could just have one beer. And
man, it's hard for me to see. It's hard for me to watch it on, like, I shared about this in a meeting just recently, is that, I go on to some of these pages and I see, 8 years from meth, 5 years from weed, 2 years from alcohol, and it's like, well, how many years you think you got clean? Like how many years are you totally absent from all substances? Well, it sounds like 2 years to me. But you want to say 8? I mean, I get it, but 2 is really the actual number.
Yeah.
And not to say that I judge anyone's recovery. I just say, man, it puts out a very interesting message especially for somebody who's new, who makes it to the rooms and says, oh man, I just got to quit meth. I can still fucking drink. And that's a fucked up message, especially because it doesn't, it just creates, I'll tell you this, when I was arrested and I had to go to these substance abuse classes, they were telling me, you can get your medical marijuana card, Michael, just go down the street, and that way you can stay off the hard stuff. You can stay off the coke. You get the medical marijuana card right here in Florida. And you're going to stay off the fucking hard stuff forever. And I'm like, motherfucker, I can't take it. I don't want any mind altering substance, period. But these guys that were in jail, that were coming in, they were like, oh wow, that's a fucking great idea, man. I can fucking, yeah. So when I piss now, fucking a minute, they already know I got my card. So, it's
right.
And I'm just like, man, fucking, where are we going here? Where are we going here? What's going on here? It's convoluting the message of recovery. It's all or nothing. It's you can't pick and choose the substances you want to do and then proclaim clean time. You might be 8 years off of meth, but if you're still smoking weed and drinking, man, you're still fucked up, dude.
If you're smoking weed from the second you wake up in the morning, your first drink is at 10 o'clock. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's crazy. It fucks with my head, because it's like, man, I'm just like, some guy, here's the other one that really tripped me up. It was, and I sent it to Sober Gangster. I sent it, some guy posted a sticker. It was the label of a Budweiser 0. Now, granted, and I looked this up, it is a 0.0. There's no alcohol in there. However, that's a fucking really slippery slope that you're playing with.
It's funny though. There's a lot of people that are finding recovery from alcohol-free drinks, and
you understand it.
Like I think there's a shindig, like a big it's kind of like, I don't know exactly, but the young people recovery groups, right? Like I have had some of the craziest wild experiences in some of these young people conferences, and gone to some crazy parties where everybody's dancing. I have friends that at their last birthday, they were doing beer bongs of Red Bull, right?
Oh wow,
okay. Like they were doing it of Red Bull. They weren't doing the alcohol-free stuff, but eventually, like in my recovery, I got sober to live. Yeah. Right. I live free today. I can go anywhere. I can do anything. I can go any place, and I know I'm free from my compulsion to drink and use.
The obsession's been lifted.
This obsession's been lifted. That means I can go to parties. That means I can dance. I can
100.
dance
100.
and rage and
go to the bar and watch a football game. Period.
Even I have friends that when they all know I don't drink, they all order their shots and they go out of their way to get me a water shot to include me in the toast.
Of course.
To include me in the toast.
Of course. They love you.
So I think that those alcohol-free spirits or whatever they are, I never liked beer, so I never drank beer for the taste ever. It was to get drunk.
I drank for both.
But some people like the taste. Some people, some people drink their sparkling water with a lime in it and to feel a part of still without the alcohol side. And so I can see the pros and the cons to the alcohol-free drinks that are out there. I just think it's becoming
what is it? Fojitos, it's Sprite and lime and a fucking mint leaf in it. I mean, what the fuck ever.
Recovery's becoming mainstream. And I think a lot of people are. I'm going to use my wife for example.
I think health is becoming mainstream.
She is not an alcoholic.
Recovery.
Yes.
She's
not an alcoholic. She is sober right now. She's been sober for 6 months, and she's doing it for her health benefits, and she likes the way she feels, and she likes how her body feels without alcohol and how she wakes up. And
would you consider it addict behavior though? Because I mean, I only fucking tilted beers, but I was fucking I'm trying to fake the funk. I'm still trying to live the addict life, even though I'm not fucking drinking the fucking beer.
This is when it gets fun. I think when we.
This is a fire. We might have to skip a guest next week just so we can fucking discuss this and take on phone calls or bring in a 7th channel. I'm gonna have to do a quad or an octo box like they do on the fucking Red Zone and have 8 people in here.
I want to hear what Rachel thinks about alcohol-free drinks.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I wanted to be able to drink non-alcoholic beer, and I got a 6-pack, not this round of recovery, but the last one. I think I got 2 6-packs so I could have a beer every night, and I drank them all in one night. So I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work for me. Still an addict.
Still an addict. The behavior is staying the same. One's too many, and 1,000 will never get me drunk.
Yeah, I found and I flirted with this idea, but I've decided it's probably not for me. There's this new non-alcoholic wine, and somehow it got in my freaking Instagram feed that I never go on. And I'm like, I could have a Chardonnay now. Yeah, and I'm just like, Rachel, you're going to buy 2 and drink them all, wondering why. Because it's the behavior for me, wondering why that little tiny buzz isn't there. I drink kombucha if I'm at a party and I want to feel like I'm drinking something flat and nasty.
Wait, hold on.
It's not for me.
Filled with probiotics.
Kombucha tastes like flat champagne.
Yeah, it tastes like you like kombucha?
Kombucha's fantastic. It's so
I drink it. I don't like it. I drink it.
My wife gave me kombucha once, and I'm like, there's something about this. It feels weird. And she's like, well, it is fermented.
It's fermented, correct. It's probiotics.
But it tasted so alcohol-y to me.
Yeah.
I can't drink kombucha. I tried it, and I'm like,
I can't do it. Like a ginger beer, like as if there was,
No, you know what it tastes like? Hold on, I'm cutting you off. You know what kombucha tastes like? It tastes like the beer that was left over from last night that you went and had a sip of because you needed a drink again.
Oh, put a cigarette butt
in it. Put an ice cube in it. That's what kombucha tastes like. I'm going to be real.
Agree.
See, all right, and I'll beg to disagree. I like the different flavors. They have so many, like for mental health and for physical health and spiritual health, and I got turned out. My wife turned me onto it. I tried it and I was like, oh wow, that's fucking tasty, and she's like, oh yeah, and it's great for your gut health, which is connected to the mind health, so I was like,
It's
okay.
got great health benefits.
I
Absolutely.
was like, okay, probiotics, fucking, I'm in. I don't want to eat yogurt, so it tastes like shit to me. So give me something that tastes good.
My mom loved kombuchas and all of them. Like we have them. I always sip them, and I'm just like, yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
So I'm always a stickler to try to stick on somewhat of a time frame. Rachel, do you have any exciting things or things you want to share with us before we run out of time?
Close up.
Anything you want to close us out with? What do you want to leave?
Since we almost went down another slippery slope of fucking roads, because we popped the bottle open on that one, and fucking here we are. So
I don't really have anything. Is that your pop the top?
This is my Arizona.
Yeah,
Arnold. I am addicted to these. I drink like
Arnold Palmer's. They're good. Have you tried the Liquid Death one? They're great.
I gotta try that. Okay.
Yeah, Liquid Death has a good one. They bring those to my work party. One of the guys who doesn't drink also. I don't have anything exciting going on. Like I just am living and loving my life as a single mom and raising my 2 kids.
Awesome.
But I did think of a quote that I love, and I don't know why when you were going off on your rant, and it was, and I'd love to end with this, but people always say that they would die for their children, but why not say that you'll live for yours? And that's what I'm doing in recovery is I'm living for myself and for my children. And I couldn't be more grateful. Like I live the life I prayed homeless on the streets for, and my life is wonderful.
I'm glad you came back around to your kids. I was inside really curious how that relationship healed after you got sober. And I'm sure other people that listen were curious as well. So I'm glad.
Oh yeah, they love me. They're my little best friend.
You're
awesome.
Back together and have been able to heal that relationship through the addiction.
Time heals.
They do, and they don't remember a lot of it, and so I'm very fortunate. And they love me. They love my recovery. Sometimes they don't love that I recover out loud because it's a little embarrassing to their kids. But I'm like, we're talking about Narcan. I don't care if your parents hate you. I'm that mom, and you need condoms. Let me know. You need to know how to use them. Let's talk about it. We're talking about sex too. It's my thing.
My girls have Narcan in their car. Absolutely.
Sure. I think everybody's carrying it these days. I got one in the glove box in my wife's car. So I mean,
yeah, you have to.
Shit, you never know where fentanyl's going to show up in your life. You don't know what person you're going to see at the grocery store or mall or somewhere that just can't come back to life. And if you might be the one person at that one time that can save their life. So. Ma'am, Rachel, you are an inspiration to many, and God, I love your page, and I'm going to continue to keep watching your journey. I love your journey. Obviously, we'll have you back on again in the near future, and the page is Addict with Purpose. Please go and follow this young lady. Add another 15,000 subscribers to her, followers. I mean, she is the lady who had, where you get a couple of viral posts and all of a sudden you're, the overnight sensation. I love it. I love it. I love your story. I will say this with absolute conviction. You're probably one of the most courageous and bravest women that I have had, whose story I've been privileged to hear today. And I want to say that with everything in my heart. I haven't heard anything that raw in a long time, and man, you are right up there, girl. It's good for you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. It was fun. I love getting to hear your story and learn what you're doing. It's exciting, and I love getting to hear what you're doing in your professional life as well. You're really impacting people. We talked about that before the show, so thank you.
An inspiration to women. Check her out. Addict with Purpose on Facebook. Sobergangster.com. Shotofhope.live. If you want to check out our website, see the blog, see everything, the video. We'll have the video feed up there. You can check that out. And you can find out more about us all over the place. I mean, he's on Instagram, Sober Gangster. Shot of Hope Live is on there. Are you on Insta as well, right, Rachel?
Yeah, I have like 100 followers on Instagram.
Yeah, I know I know it's a kick in the dick for me too. I understand. But we'll be back next weekend. Next weekend we will be joined next Wednesday by Julian Bryant. Beyond Driven is his company. He's the CEO, and man, he has got a special story to share with us next week. Hopefully you'll watch, Rachel, and you can call in as well. The number's always on the YouTube page. Look for this video at Rachel's Facebook page and all over where you can find. and it's you'll be able to find the podcast on anywhere podcasts are heard: iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Tune in. Do you find it? I guarantee you, we're there. Until we meet again, we will see you guys next Wednesday at Shot Up.